911, what's the location of your emergency?
Dr. Spidler calling from 3104 Churchview Drive in Valparaiso. My daughter has no pulse. It's a drug overdose.
Okay.
I need somebody here fast.
Okay, stay on the phone with me.
Yes. I'm trying to get CPR there. Talk.
Okay. So she's not breathing, no pulse?
No breathing, no pulse.
Okay, you're in Valpo.
Yes, please.
Okay, stay on the phone.
Yes. Come on, baby. Come on.
How old is she?
20. Back, Roxy, go. She's aspirated vomitus, too.
Okay.
Come on, honey.
You're a doctor?
Podiatrist.
Okay, stay on the phone.
Come on, baby.
Station 2, Valpo Fire, have an ambulance request. 3104 Churchview Drive. 20-year-old female, drug overdose. Not breathing, no pulse. Station 2, Valpo Fire, have an ambulance request. 3104 Churchview Drive. For 20-year-old female, drug overdose. Not breathing, no pulse. County is clear, 2115. Caller has
Come on, honey.
CPR.
My name is Man Spittler. That was my voice on the 911 call, desperate to save Manda, 20-year-old daughter of myself and my wife Phyllis. That was the most terrifying call I ever made. On March 31st, 2002, my wife Phyllis and I lost Manda to a self-administered lethal dose of heroin. At that time, heroin was considered a problem in our community. It's now considered an epidemic, not just in our community, but nationwide. Neither I nor Phyllis would ever have imagined that Manda would die from a lethal dose of heroin. And she didn't die here in a place like this. Manda died here in our home, the home she grew up in this bathroom, in this bathtub. And she wasn't alone in the house. I was downstairs watching television while Manda was here injecting a lethal dose of heroin into her arm. For 30 years, I had been a podiatrist with a DEA license to prescribe controlled substances. I was knowledgeable about these drugs, but I was ignorant about street drugs, the drug culture, and drug addiction. My wife Phyllis and I had planned for Manda's birth. We planned for her birthdays, for vacations, for her health, and for her education. We had hoped one day to plan for her wedding, but we never had a comprehensive parent-directed plan to prevent Manda's drug addiction. How I wish we had. Our children live in an ocean of drugs, and many of them are drowning in it. And yes, potentially even your child. After Manda died, Phyllis and I gave great thought as to what we might have done to have prevented Manda from falling into the abyss of addiction. This short film offers recommendations from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, plus common sense techniques that parents can use to reduce the risk factors associated with drug use. What is drug addiction? Drug addiction is a chronic, relapsing brain disease characterized by the compulsive use of a consciousness-altering chemical, despite potentially catastrophic effects. The National Institute on Drug Abuse states that both genetics and environment contribute to drug addiction. The most predictive risk factor for drug use by your child is who their friends are. Why do kids want to alter their consciousness? To eliminate stress, to forget or numb out sexual, verbal, or physical abuse, as an antidote to a general feeling of emptiness, or to create a profound awe of the ordinary, as an emotional anesthetic. Drugs are used as a social lubricant that a child believes leads to social acceptance. It's a tonic to boredom, feelings of inadequacy, and alienation. Some kids are dual diagnosed with depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, personality disorders, ADHD, PTSD, to name only a few. For many kids, the drugs change how they feel about themselves, giving them a false sense of self-confidence to defeat fatigue and tiredness.
I'm Amber Schaefer. My experience with drug addiction is I was an addict for several years. I started when I was 15 and used till about 21 or 22. And I've tried lots of things, but heroin ended up being my favorite. I always say that if my parents would have just looked around in my room or my car or anything like that, I would have been caught. I know that a lot of parents, not all parents, but a lot of parents want their kids to trust them and be friends with them, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, you need your kids to trust you so that you can have conversations about drugs or, whatever it might be. But I think it's really important. I'm all for drug testing. I'm all for that. I plan on drug testing my children. I plan on going through my kids' rooms. I was really good at hiding things, so I always tell my kids, good luck. Good luck trying to hide anything from me, because I was the queen of, hiding places. I encourage my kids to write, to journal. I think that's a good thing too, and I have never said I'm not going to look at it, because I might one day. It just depends on the feelings that you get. If you feel like your child is maybe acting differently, or maybe you don't know their friends or something, you should know who your kids' friends are. It's very important.
Research has shown that children who abuse cigarettes and alcohol at an early age are the most at risk for later drug addiction. 92% of adolescent cannabis users are regular smokers. In fact, research from DePaul University has shown that crime rates are lower in communities that enforce youth access to tobacco laws. What are some of the prevention techniques that you, as a parent, can use to keep your child from abusing themselves with drugs? First and foremost, you must establish and maintain good communication with your child and be involved in your child's life. Set aside a few minutes every day exclusively for your child. Spend at least 15 minutes a day in an activity your child wants to do. Identify at least one opportunity each week for you and your child to do something together. Validate your child's feelings as much as possible by practicing active listening. Recognize good behavior consistently and immediately. Make clear rules, and most importantly, enforce them with consistency and appropriate consequences. Discuss your rules and expectations in advance with your child, and you must follow through with the consequences you have established.
My name is Bonnie Pugh, and I have two sons that are struggling with heroin addiction. It's been going on for about 7 years now for both of them. I think it started around 12, right around there. I wish I had talked to them sooner. I waited more till they were in late middle school to start talking to them about it, and I think I should have started probably in elementary school. I know they started with alcohol and marijuana, and then they proceeded to the pills, Percocet, oxycodone, that kind of stuff, and then from there it went to heroin. Heroin had never crossed my mind in a million years. I had no idea how readily available that was, and I really wish I had updated on that stuff. I would have liked to have known to talk to them much earlier than I did. I would have definitely snooped. I think I trusted way too much. You think they're just good kids, I don't have anything to worry about, but had I done the snooping, I would have found out a lot sooner than I did. Because once I actually did know and went and snooped through his room, I found a lot of stuff. Very well hidden, but if I would have done it, maybe I could have intervened a lot sooner than I did. I wish that I would have been more strict with computers as far as like Facebook and that type of thing, required their passwords and, limited their time or turned it off at night especially, didn't let them stay holed up in their room with their laptops and internet all night long and cell phones. I've often wished I would have taken that away during the night and checked the cell phone, go through it, see what friends are in there that I didn't know about, because a lot of the friends that I knew about weren't ones that were any issues. They were ones that he was hiding, that I had never met, that this was happening with. And had I gone through his phone, I probably would have been a little more suspicious of what was happening. I wish I would have started it a lot sooner. I did do drug testing with them, but they do get to be pretty good at manipulating things, and they did find some ways to get around that. But maybe had I started even sooner, it wouldn't have been, you know, it wasn't really a surprise to them when I started doing it, because I always kind of knew at that point they were already using. I wish I knew prior to that and just surprised them, you know, when they came home from a friend's house and said, you know what, I want you to take this drug test. Because you just never know. I mean, you think it's not your kids, but it very well can be. It can be anybody's child.
Make a point of recognizing good behavior and acknowledge your children when they follow the rules. Discuss with your child, making sure they understand why using tobacco and illegal drugs and underage drinking are not acceptable. Be a positive role model. Do not engage in illegal, unhealthy, or dangerous drug use. Never involve your child in your use of tobacco, alcohol, or illegal drugs. When possible, point out examples of bad behavior linked to substance abuse and the consequences. Teach your child to choose friends wisely. Establish the clear message that you, as a caring and loving parent, do not want them to use alcohol, tobacco, or illegal drugs. Practice with your child how to resist peer pressure. Help your child feel comfortable in social situations, and teach your child to analyze media messages. Monitor your child's activities. Establish relationships with your child's friends, and get to know the parents of your child's friends. When your child goes out, make sure you know where they are going, who they'll be with, and what they'll be doing. Then verify it. Have your child check in at regular times and make it easy for him or her to contact you. Make sure your child has access to enjoyable, drug-free, structured activities. Drug testing. There are easy-to-use drug testing kits readily available to purchase online for home testing. Be a snoop. Read your child's journals. Listen in on phone conversation. Search your child's room, their car, their purse, their backpack.
My name is Carrie. I have a 22-year-old son, Cody, who has been in and out of recovery for about the past 5 years, but probably since the age of 12 has had a serious addiction to drugs, alcohol, pretty much anything he could get a hold of. I definitely can think back of at very young ages, even prior to drugs and alcohol coming into the picture, Cody always expressing sort of a sadness, not quite feeling like other kids, kind of feeling isolated. I never then thought that that was, you know, the gateway to addiction. However, I think he found very young the thing that made that go away and filled that gap, and, you know, has progressed into, you know, almost a 10-year addiction. So I think just listening to those clues, you know, our children do communicate with us. They can't always articulate at 12 years old exactly what that is. So I think taking the time and just listening. But I do think, looking back, if I had been able to address at a young age the pain and the things that Cody would express as far as just not feeling like he fit in or just not feeling happy, had I been able to listen and understand that, I think that we possibly could have gone a different route. I do think prevention is the way to go. I think it's the prevention has to start with the families, and I think it starts at, you know, adolescence. Before that, I think most of the addicts that I know started in middle school. So I think talking to our kids when they're 4 and 5 and 6 and really letting them know is important, but I think that they express it to us without us knowing that that's what they're expressing, is they're hurt and they're searching, they're seeking, they're looking for something, and we just have to be able to understand that and listen. And that is what, if I had anything that I could do differently, that is what I would do differently. what kept our family sick and what keeps so many families sick is shame. And I think when you get educated and when you have a good, strong support system as a parent, as a mother, you can lose that shame so that you can help your child and you can help your family. I share very, very openly, and I think when you do that, that judgment goes away when people really hear what it's like and really see the families that cope with addiction every day. It turns a light on, I think, that no one is immune to it. None of our children are immune to it.
If there is to be a war on drugs, it must begin at home, and it begins with parents being knowledgeable about the signs of self-abuse with drugs. What should parents be looking for? Signs and symptoms of teen self-abuse with drugs. Bloodshot eyes or dilated, contracted pupils, skipping classes or slipping grades, missing money or prescription drugs, uncharacteristically isolated, withdrawn, angry or depressed, dropping one group of friends for another, being secretive about new peer group, loss of interest in established activities, demanding more privacy, locking doors, avoiding eye contact, sneaking off, changes in appetite or sleep patterns, sudden changes in weight, deterioration of physical appearance, unusual smells on breath or clothing, tremors, slurred speech, impaired coordination, changes in personality, periods of unusual hyperactivity or agitation, lack of motivation or lethargy, mood swings, irritability, angry outbursts, fearfulness, anxiousness, paranoia for no apparent reason.
My name is Noah Beck. I live here in Valparaiso, and my worst experience in the drug addiction is I lost my son to drugs at the age of 25. His drug of choice was heroin. About a year and a half before I really caught on that he was doing drugs, and then it was through finding used needles that he had left at his grandmother's house. I wasn't really worried about him maybe getting into something wrong until they, the teenage years, 16, 15, 16, 17. Now, I look back on the history of my son and think about it. I should have been there when he was, and paying closer attention when he was 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. Even in grade school, I should have been paying more attention. I think that's what we've got to do. I should have done more of getting him involved in things, sports, at an early age. Anything that would have kept him from the peer groups that he got into that I think ended up putting him on drugs. I think the peer pressure, the wanting to be included with his friends, I think the choice of friends that he chose, the ones that wanted to stay out late at night and not being in sports or any other activities, I think that was part of it. I would say it's a lot better to offend your child at an early age than to put them in the grave before you go. People, I think that they're hurting their child's feelings. I probably did the same thing, but I wouldn't now. I wouldn't be afraid to go through their dresser drawers, afraid to go in their privacy and find out what is going on in their life.
I understand that some of these drug prevention strategies and techniques seem extreme or even overwhelming. But what is truly overwhelming is having to witness a child suffering with their drug addiction, or even worse, to have a child die from a lethal dose of drugs. Our family lost Manda when she was 20 years old to her drug addiction. But in her tragic story is a message of hope hope that your children will be drug-free and safe, hope for your children, and hope for you.